Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about should you use Rhino or Revit. So I've been asked by people whether they should use Rhino or Revit. So it really depends on the requirements of your jobs or requirement of the university, whether you do university assignments, etc. I'm going to break this down whether you should use Rhino or Revit. So it is one of the most common questions um, that I get from people who messaged me on Instagram. So I'm going to break this down again. And it is used by architects, civil engineers, all that stuff. And I'll also give my personal recommendation of what you should do, which software you should use. Now, what is Rhino? So let's talk about Rhino and then Revit. So Rhino is a modeling powerhouse. It's known for parametric uh, modeling, very complex. I've mentioned that in my previous videos as well. It is very good for highly detailing in complex geometry, curves, surfaces that highly detailed parametric structures. So they're very good and very smooth and everything. Architects and engineers, they love, and designers, they love using Rhino because of flexibility. And you can imagine, you can model it in Rhino. So it is kind of like clay modeling, but in digital form. And it is free, organic, and you have no limitation. So you actually make your own rules in design. So you have a lot of flexibility in Rhino, and it's amazing. But in Rhino, it's not just a modeling tool. Just it doesn't really understand what is the wall, floors, or windows, etc. So it's only no geometry. They're they're very good for complex form, but not really good for like normal simple modern form like Revit, but I'm going to go to Revit afterward. So to push Rhino even further, it had to be joined with plugin called Grasshopper. So it's a plugin designed in Rhino, and it lets you create algorithm to generate and control complex form, whether it's coding and to create very complex form. Let's say, for example, let's say like Zaha Hadid building or whatever crazy ideas you have, you can use in Grasshopper. And Rhino's also, what makes Rhino also popular is the use of experimental architecture. If you're in computational design in architecture, Rhino is the best one, and Grasshopper. And also in architecture, Rhino is also used for digital fabrication and research-driven design. So Rhino is not just about design and making concept, but also very good for experiment, computational design, like I mentioned before, research, and digital fabrication. Now, this is Rhino. So let's talk about Revit. Revit is a BIM modeling tool. So BIM stands for Building Information Modeling, and it's not focused on raw geometry, so it's more focused on data-rich buildings, components. Let's say like insulation, brick elements, the materials element that you know if you're in architecture about technical drawings, you know about this. Now, when you draw a wall in Revit, the software doesn't see it as geometry, so kind of like how to explain. So it is not as complicated as Rhino when it comes to geometry, but it's a bit more simple. So it knows the wall, the materials, the thickness, the phi rating, and the cost data. And so same goes for floors, windows, everything intelligence. So this means Revit is essential for construction documentation, collaboration across disciplines, and producing drawings and schedules. And they are legally required to build real buildings. So this is mostly software used by civil engineers, architects, and interior designers. So the very most useful tools. Now, while Rhino is very good for creating concept ideas, generating ideas, but Revit is more like a construction manual for construction engineers. manual for construction, and everything in detailing. So Rhino is good for creating models. Revit is also good for creating models, but more professionally for if you're in the architectural industry. This is why Revit is used a lot in architecture firms, interior design firms. Now, let me talk about the strengths and weaknesses of Rhino and Revit. So Rhino has flexibility, freeform design, parametric exploration, integration with fabrication, but the weakness is it doesn't really produce documentation requirements like document on its own, and collaboration with engineers can be kind of tricky. So, and then in Revit, the good thing about Revit is it has BIM collaboration, so you can produce documentation standard for a construction project. Weakness is rigid, and if you try to design something that's highly unconventional, like super complex in whatever you have in mind, then Revit will fight you at the end every step of the way. So if you're way more advanced, just for if you care only about modeling, then use Rhino. But if you're more kind of like a professional that wants to get the work done with documentation or even some complex modeling, then Revit is perfect for you. In short, Rhino is perfect for creativity and Revit is good for construction. So one is freedom, and the other, sorry. So Rhino is freedom and Revit is the order. So you have to do modeling and then you've got to kind of like edit the materials, kind of stuff, and then put in documentation. Now, let's say Rhino and Revit together. The real magic happens when you both use together. So thanks to Rhino, inside Revit, you can use Rhino and Grasshopper inside of Revit. So that's a very useful tool. Maybe no one tells you the secret, so I just told you now. And this lets you design freely in Rhino. So then post geometry directly into Revit for documentation. So you can switch from Rhino to Revit. So that's very useful tool if you're using Rhino. So you're no longer forced to choose which software you use. It's becoming common practice in big firms to use Rhino for early design and Revit for final documentation. So Rhino is very good for design and Revit is very good for documentation. Now, my honest recommendation is which one should you use? Which one should you learn? So, my recommendation, if you're a student and you're early in your career, start with Rhino. Obviously, it will teach you how to think about form, complex geometry, parametric form, like the Zaha Hadid that I mentioned before. Very good. Space, even parametric logic without constraints of the building code. So building code or building regulation, you don't even need to think about how the spaces are connected together or how it fits the regulation at the beginning. So Rhino is very good for modeling in general. Now, if you're working more in a professional firm, right, you need Revit. So Revit is mostly used when you want to get a job or mostly used in architecture firm. But I do highly recommend that you learn Revit alongside Rhino if you can. And it's an industry standard for BIM, and knowing that it will make you employable. Let's say you don't use Revit at all, it's kind of like unlikely. Well, you can get a job without Revit, of course, but if you have Revit within your, let's say, resume, or if you have learned Revit yourself or learned Revit at university, it will make you more valuable to employers. So Revit is very good if you are trying to get a job in an architecture firm or interior design firm, depending on the requirements. So make sure you read the requirements first before you apply. Now, if you really want to stand out, learn both Rhino and Revit. Now use Rhino for design exploration, and this can bring into Revit for BIM that the combination of extremely valuable in practice. So the conclusion is should you use Rhino or Revit? Now, my answer is it really depends. There's no right or wrong answer. So it is more about using the right tools for the right audience, for the right employers, um, for the right purposes. If you're using Revit in university assignments or Rhino university assignment, then yes, choose that. But it would be better if you select both of them, if you use both of them. So if you want to design freely, use Rhino. If you want to design smartly, use Revit. Now, that's the conclusion of this video. I hope this helped. Yeah, if you do want my help in how to do renders from 0 to hero render using the hybrid system, I will leave a link down below. You can have a book or call with me if you would like to have coaching with me one-to-one directly. So I'm looking for 5 people to coach. I can't take on many. So yeah, if you don't know what the hybrid system is, I will leave a video maybe somewhere around this video to show what it means. Now, obviously, thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you are interested working with me, just let me know. You can also message me on Instagram. Also, please like, comment, and subscribe. So that's going to increase the algorithm to reach more people like you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you on the next one.